They skipped my graduation, but still sent me the bill for his rehab. The ceremony lasted 2 hours. I kept looking at the empty chairs behind me, hoping maybe they were just late. That maybe traffic or a wrong turn had delayed them, but the names kept being called, the caps flew, and the seats stayed empty. I walked the stage alone, no applause from the crowd, no familiar faces waving, no camera flashes. Just the quiet echo of my own name and the sound of other people's joy, filling the space mine should have occupied. I had saved 3 seats. Even made name tags Mom, Dad, Jake. I left them on their chairs with a little graduation program and a plastic-wrapped invitation I had written by hand. I hope this is a day you'll be proud of me. After the ceremony, I didn't cry. I took my photos, smiled for classmates, then sat alone on a bench by the fountain. One girl walked by with balloons and her whole family. I pretended I was texting someone, but the screen was blank. That night, I got a text from my mom. It said, "Hope the ceremony went well. We've had a rough week with Jake, can you call when you get a chance?" No apology, no explanation, just another moment where his chaos overruled my milestones. I didn't call. I went to bed, held the extra invitation in my hand, and stared at the words I had written. I meant every single one, and none of it mattered. They didn't forget. They chose not to show up. 3 days later, I got an email from my dad. Subject line, Ray, support for Jake. The body of the message included a scanned bill from the rehab facility. It was over $19,000. Attached was a note, "Since you're working now and didn't have college debt, we figured you could help." I reread it 3 times, thinking maybe I was misunderstanding something. I wasn't. They skipped my graduation and now they were sending me a bill for his recovery. The same brother who had stolen my laptop, lied to my face, wrecked 2 cars, and never once said sorry. The same brother whose excuses had been framed as pain, while my achievements were treated as noise. I didn't scream, I didn't call them. I just opened a drawer and pulled out the extra graduation card. I held it, ran my thumb over my handwriting, and felt my stomach sink. They asked me to pay for his healing, but never once cared about my wounds. I placed the card back in its plastic sleeve, then I folded the rehab invoice and slid it inside. They wanted something from me again, but this time I wouldn't disappear so easily. Jake was always the loud one, the one who made messes and got forgiven before they dried. I was the one who cleaned quietly my room, my grades, my emotions, from the time we were kids. Our family had 2 roles, the problem and the solution. He got chaos, I got responsibility. When Jake crashed our neighbor's bike at 13, my mom said, "Boys push limits." When I came home crying at 15 because I got a B on a math test, she said, "Stop being dramatic." His failures were explained. My pain was exaggerated. My dad worked long hours but always made time to check in with Jake. They bonded over baseball, fixing things in the garage, recovery milestones. With me, he'd just ask if my tires were okay. No hugs, no real questions. I was a checklist. They didn't see me as their daughter. They saw me as the calm between his storms. When Jake started using, the house became a cycle. Rehab, relapse, rehab again. Each time he came home, it was like the air was holding its breath. Mom would walk on eggshells. Dad would praise him for trying, and I would disappear in plain sight. At 17, I applied to colleges in secret. I didn't even tell them when I got in, just left the acceptance letter on the kitchen table. My mom looked up and said, "That's great, honey, just don't move too far. Jake still needs support." I moved 5 hours away. In college, I worked 3 jobs, cafeteria in the mornings, tutoring on weekends, waitressing at night. No loans, no help. I'd call home out of guilt, only to hear updates on Jake, his new therapist, his new girlfriend, his latest breakdown. No one asked how I was doing. The first time I told my mom I was struggling with anxiety, she said, "Try meditating. And don't make it about you, Elena. We're all dealing with Jake right now." That sentence branded itself into my bones. I stopped sharing after that. Still, I kept showing up for holidays. For birthdays, I brought gifts, stories, achievements. And every time, they'd turn the conversation toward Jake. "He's doing better this time. He's finding himself. Be patient with him." I was the wallpaper in my own family present, but never seen. When Jake stole my laptop during a weekend visit, my dad said he probably needed it more. When I missed a midterm because of it, my professor gave me grace. My parents did in single quotas. At graduation, I thought maybe this time Maybe one clean milestone would earn their attention. I printed the invitations myself. Wrote each note with trembling hope. I'd love to see you there. This means a lot to me. I placed them carefully in their rooms during a visit. The morning of the ceremony, I got a text from Jake. Good luck today. Sis, sorry I can't be there. Rough week, you know how it is. That was all, no call, no voice, just a text from a boy who always had a reason. I think I knew then. I think some part of me sat in that auditorium already mourning the absence, already bracing for the next ask, and I was right. Because 3 days later, the invoice arrived, and with it, the final confirmation that I had never really been their daughter, just a backup plan for their favorite son. The red flags didn't come with sirens, they came as favors, requests dressed as love. Could you drive Jake to his meeting? Can you spot him this time, just until the check clears? I was 17 the first time I paid his phone bill. I was 24 the last time I pretended it was no big deal. Every act of kindness was quietly expected, not celebrated, not remembered, just absorbed. I was the reliable one, the helper, the one they could call without checking if I was okay. When I once said no to lending Jake money during college, my mom didn't speak to me for 2 days. Then she texted, "It's not like you to be so selfish." That word stayed with me, selfish, not because I said no but because I stopped bending. In my family, love was measured by how much of yourself you erased for someone else. I remember my 21st birthday. I came home hoping for dinner, a card, something. Instead, I found Jake in the kitchen with my parents, crying because his girlfriend had left him. My mom hugged him. Said, "Let's not bring up Elena's party tonight. He's going through so much." The party never happened. I never mentioned it again. Jake once pawned a necklace I got from my grandmother. I asked him why. He said, "I didn't think you'd miss it. You're not the sentimental type." That line shattered something. Not because it wasn't true, but because it was said like a fact they all agreed on. I wasn't allowed to be soft, to need, to break. That role was reserved for Jake when I started therapy. I paid out of pocket. I didn't even tell my family. I was afraid they'd turn it into a punchline, and maybe they would have. They always said things like, "You've always been the stable one." Stability was just their way of saying, "We don't worry about you enough to notice you suffering." He had meltdowns, I had expectations. The rehab bills weren't a surprise. What shocked me was the boldness to send an invoice right after skipping my graduation, to ask for money without mentioning the moment I spent for years working toward. I reread that email a dozen times. Each time, I found new hurt in it. Not just in what it asked, but in what it ignored. There was no congratulations, nowhere proud, just a transaction. I started making a list that night. Every time I had helped Jake, every dollar, every missed opportunity, every time I canceled something for him. The list was long, too long. And I hadn't even scratched the surface. My therapist once said, "You can't heal in a place that requires your absence to stay functional." I didn't understand that then. I do now. My presence in that family only worked if I stayed quiet, if I didn't need anything back. So I stopped returning calls, just for a few days, then a week. I wanted to see if anyone would notice. They didn't, not until the money didn't come. That's when the texts started again. The first message came from my mom. "Elena, we really need that payment. Jake's insurance didn't cover the full stay. It's urgent. No hello, no how are you, just a direct ask." I didn't reply. 2 days later, my dad called. I let it go to voicemail. His voice was flat. "We're disappointed in how you're handling this. You know your brother is trying. This is life or death." There it was again, the framing. If I said no, I wasn't just selfish, I was cruel. The next message wasn't a call, it was a group email. Subject line, family support. Sent to me, Mom, Dad, and CC'd to Jake. In it, my mother wrote, "Elena is withholding funds during your treatment. We're doing all we can, but she's not responding. We hope she remembers what family means." They didn't ask for help, they built a case against me. I sat frozen in my kitchen, rereading the email. The phrasing wasn't just manipulative, it was strategic. They were painting me as the obstacle publicly, in front of the one person who had drained me for years. Jake replied within minutes, "It's fine. I should have known she'd do this. It's always about her." That sentence split me open. I hadn't even defended myself, and still, I was cast as the villain, the selfish one. The ungrateful sister who couldn't even give back after everything they'd done. What exactly had they done? Skipped my graduation, forgot my birthdays, took my money, called me selfish when I drew boundaries, praised him for waking up. Ignored me for staying strong. I replied one sentence. That's all I wrote. Don't ever contact me about Jake again. I clicked send and sat there, trembling, not from fear but from the shock of finally saying no. They expected gratitude. I gave them silence. That night, I cried harder than I had in years, not because I missed them but because I realized I had been trained to believe that my value depended on being useful. I wasn't their daughter. I was their insurance policy. I blocked their numbers, every one of them, Mom, Dad, Jake. Then I took the plastic-wrapped graduation invitation, slid the rehab invoice inside, and wrote on the back, "This is the only balance I ever owed you and I'm not paying it." I mailed it to their house. No return address, just my handwriting steady, sharp, final. And for the first time in my life, I breathed without guilt. The silence after cutting them off wasn't peaceful, it was suffocating. I kept checking my phone out of habit, expecting another guilt message, another plea disguised as an attack, but nothing came. And that absence hit harder than I was ready for. I thought I'd feel free, empowered, but all I felt was hollow, because even when they hurt me, they were still there, and now, I wasn't sure who I was without the role they'd forced me into. I spent days moving in slow motion, didn't answer friends' texts, didn't go out. I'd go from my bed to the couch and back again. Some nights, I held the graduation card I never mailed, the one I'd saved for myself. The handwriting looked like someone else's, so hopeful, so naive. I didn't just lose a family, I lost the person I became to survive them. At work, I functioned like a machine, smiled when needed, typed fast, delivered results. No one noticed that my mind was somewhere else entirely, back in that auditorium, staring at 3 empty chairs. My therapist asked what I wanted now, what I needed, and I didn't know. I had spent so long building a life to prove my worth to people who never intended to see me. Without that fight, what was left? I started writing things down, little fragments. I am not their keeper. I am not his rehab fund. I deserved applause. At first, it felt petty, then it felt necessary. A quiet rebuild, sentence by sentence. The dreams started next. Always the same, me standing at the podium at graduation, calling their names. Waiting, then waking up before they arrived. Every single time, I considered unblocking them once, just to see if they had sent anything, but then I remembered the email thread, the way they triangulated blame, the way they made me the villain for refusing to bleed on command. I wasn't the failure, I was the fallout. One night, I opened a folder labeled school stuff and found my acceptance letter again. The original one, the one they barely acknowledged. I held it and wept, not because they missed it, but because I never needed them to be proud to make it real. I went through photos from graduation, found one of me alone by the fountain. My gown slightly crooked, my smile small but real. I printed it, framed it, put it on my desk. Not for them, for me. I lit a candle, played a song that made me cry, and said goodbye, not to them, but to the version of me that waited for their recognition. I didn't know what came next, but I knew it wouldn't involve debt, emotional or financial. That wasn't mine, and that was enough for now. It began with small things. I changed my emergency contact form at work, removed my parents. I added Julia, my closest friend, the one who actually shows up. It felt insignificant at first. But later, I stared at the paper and realized, this is what claiming myself looks like. I started saying my own name out loud when I ordered coffee, signed forms, introduced myself. Elena, not Jake's sister, not Rick and Carol's daughter, just me. A full sentence, a complete human. One afternoon, I opened a storage box with old notebooks and found a list I made in college. Things I'll do when I graduate. Most were crossed out. Some were dreams I didn't even remember wanting, but the first line stopped me cold. Have a real celebration, even if it's just me. That same week, I took myself to dinner, dressed up, sat at a corner table, ordered wine, toasted myself. People looked, I didn't care. I even brought the plastic-wrapped graduation card, placed it on the table like a guest. They skipped my big day, so I gave myself a better one. No guilt, no audience, no debt. At home, I started writing again, not for school, not for anyone else, just for me. Essays about being invisible, about guilt that sounds like love, about applause you give yourself when no one else claps. I created a small blog, anonymous, raw. I titled it 3 Empty Chairs. Every post was like carving space back into my life. One paragraph at a time, people started commenting, saying things like, "This is my story too. I wasn't alone. I joined a local women's support group. We didn't sit in circles crying, we planned." Vented laughed at the absurdities of our stories. It felt like family, the kind that listens, the kind that never sends invoices for love. I bought myself a silver frame, not ornate, just clean. I placed the photo of me at the fountain inside it. Next to the graduation card I had mailed and returned unopened. I didn't hang it to remember pain, I hung it to honor proof. I didn't need them to clap. I needed me to stay standing. When Jake's name came up, I didn't flinch anymore. I didn't soften my tone or add disclaimers. My brother struggles, I'd say, then move on. He wasn't my full biography anymore. I learned to enjoy quiet again. Not the silence that hides pain, but the kind that holds peace. I made playlists, cooked for myself, walked alone, laughed out loud at podcasts without needing to explain why. I took the graduation card out of the plastic. Finally, the ink had faded slightly, but the words still read, "This means a lot to me." And for the first time, I wasn't begging them to feel the same. I was confirming it for myself. I threw away the rehab invoice, not out of rage, out of closure. It didn't belong in my story anymore. I owed them nothing. They never got a response to the invoice. No call, no text, just silence. I knew it would eat at them more than any confrontation ever could, because they weren't used to being ignored. They were used to being central even in other people's pain. Weeks passed. I saw that Jake posted online about lack of support and family who turns their back. The irony nearly choked me. He was fishing for sympathy, but for once I wasn't the net catching him. Mom emailed again, this time with a softer tone. "I wish things hadn't gone this way. You know we love you." I didn't reply. I read it twice, then archived it. That word love meant nothing when it came after invoices and blame. They called it love. I called it labor. Then something happened. A former professor reached out, asking if I'd speak to her current students about resilience. I hesitated. Then I said yes. I walked into that classroom weeks later with my diploma, my story, and no apology in my voice. I shared my experience not to bash my family, but to spotlight the quiet ways people like me disappear. How being the strong one often means being unseen. The room was silent. Some nodded. One girl cried. Afterward, a student hugged me and whispered, "Thank you for saying it out loud." That moment felt more healing than any family dinner ever had. I published my first post under my real name. The blog had grown, and I decided, no more hiding. The title of the piece was "The Bill That Broke Me." In it, I described the day they skipped my graduation and sent me a price for my brother's pain. The post went viral. Hundreds of comments, stories like mine, some worse, some identical, and somewhere in that digital crowd, I stopped feeling alone. They wanted me quiet. I gave the world my voice. A few months later, I received a small envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was the plastic sleeve I had used for the graduation invitation. Empty now. The card was gone. But the sleeve had a note scribbled on it. "We didn't realize it mattered this much." I didn't need to guess who sent it, and I didn't care. I placed the empty sleeve next to the photo of me at the fountain, not as a keepsake, as evidence of everything they missed, of everything I survived, of everything I rebuilt without them. I launched a support circle from my blog. Virtual at first, then local. We called it "No Applause Needed." We didn't fix each other. We witnessed each other. That was enough. Jake relapsed again. I heard from someone else. I didn't reach out, because the truth is he was never mine to fix. He never was. Freedom didn't come in one sweeping moment. It came in small things: waking up without dread, cooking meals for one without sadness, laughing at something dumb without wondering if I was too much. For the first time, my life didn't orbit anyone's crisis. I moved apartments, new walls, new air, no shared memories. The first thing I unpacked was the photo me by the fountain. In my cap and gown, I placed it above my desk, right next to it. The plastic sleeve that once held my graduation card, still empty, perfectly symbolic. I stopped explaining myself to people. If they asked why I didn't talk to my family, I just said, "It's better this way." No justifications, no defense. My peace didn't require their understanding. I stopped using the word resilient too. It always felt like code for "you've survived more than you should have." Now I just call myself human, full, worthy. Not because of what I endured, but because I exist. They raised me to carry the weight. I put it down and walked away. At a bookstore event, a woman approached me after a panel. She held a copy of my essay collection, tears in her eyes. I thought I was crazy for still being hurt by things they said 10 years ago, I told her. Pain doesn't expire just because they've moved on. I wasn't just healing, I was building a life where my name didn't sit at the bottom of someone else's priority list, a life where no wasn't a betrayal, it was a boundary. I hosted a private dinner for my chosen family, friends, mentors, people who saw me. I wore my cap and gown. Everyone thought it was a joke until I raised my glass and said, I never got my celebration, so I made one. They clapped, and this time the seats were full. After everyone left, I sat alone for a moment. I took out the old graduation card, the original one I had saved. I read it one last time, then I folded it gently, slid it back into the empty plastic sleeve, and tucked it into a memory box. They missed my beginning, but I'm the one writing the rest. I don't check for their emails anymore. I don't reread old texts. The girl who used to search for proof of their love doesn't live here anymore. Jake exists in the world, so do they, but not in mine. I wake up now with plans, with purpose, with peace, not loud, but steady. And when I pass my framed photo, I don't feel pain, I feel pride. They skipped my graduation and sent me a bill for his healing. So I invoiced the silence and reinvested in myself.